Story of Hagar the Egyptian. This story is about a young slave girl named Hagar. She came from the land of Egypt. Nothing is known of her before she entered Abraham's household. She was given to Sarah by her husband Abraham as her maid. The full story of Hagar can be found in Genesis chapter 16, verses 1 to 8, verse 15, 16, 21, 9 to 17, and 25, 12, and in Galatians 4, 24 to 25. This story was written around 2075 BC. The name Hagar means light. Hagar was the mother of the Arab descendants, so I will let Hagar tell her story. Hagar life story. My name is Hagar. I am an Egyptian young lady, beautiful with an amazing figure. I have long black silky hair like my dad and my mom's. My skin is the color of light brown, and I have a beautiful smile. I am an only child and a girl at that. I also have some cousins, nephews, and many aunts and uncles. My life in Egypt was happy as I was a child, even though we were living in poverty. But as I grew older, things started to change, and I began to understand life in general clearly. My parents seem a bit uncomfortable with me. They keep whispering behind my back and stop speaking when I'm around. I decided to keep track of their movements. One day, my mom told me to pack my clothes. Where am I going? I asked. You will see, she said. I became confused, now pondering where she was taking me. We went on a long journey. My father was not with us. That also puzzled me. But we always went out together. We came to a place where there were lots of people. They looked strange, different from us, more dressed up. So I asked my mom where we are. She said, in the land of Israel. What? Israel? What are we doing here? What are all those people doing here? Never mind then. We are here on business. Come this way. We then began to walk further along the road with crowd. Then I saw another group of people, this time mostly men. I noticed a platform segment with young boys and girls standing looking afraid. Why are those girls there, Mom? I asked. She tried to shy away from my question. Keep quiet, she said. So I remained silent. People were staring at us. My mom went to speak to a very good looking gentleman, and I wondered who he was. He had a strong face and a gentle smile. I kind of liked him. He seemed wealthy and well mannered. They started walking towards me, and I just began to feel nervous. Hagar, my mom called, meet Abraham, father of the nations. We'll be going to live with him. Really, I thought, me, 16 years old, and going away from my parents to live in a foreign land? Really, Mom? Anyway, I put on my nice face and forced a smile. Nice to meet you, Mr. Abraham. He smiled at me, flashing his perfect white teeth. He looked very well kept. I wondered who this man was and why I was going to live with him. Why was my parents giving me away to strangers? Don't they love me anymore? What have I done wrong? I kept all those things in my heart, trusting my God that all things would work out for me. Yeah, I know of Almighty God. My parents go to the mountains to pray every Sabbath. My mother said her goodbyes, and the gentleman said I, and the gentleman and I started on our journey. The journey was long. We passed several trees, crops, and a few homes. But some homes we could see in the far distance. Dust was everywhere as the chariot traveled along the dusty road. This man is so quiet. He hardly speaks. I started to speak to him. Where are you taking me, Mr. Abraham? I am taking you to my house, he said. And where is that? He said in Canaan. When we arrived at his house, he introduced me to his wife. My dear, this is your maid servant Hagar. Treat her well. She is all yours. I made a little dip. How are you, madam? She smiled. I am well, thank you. Where are you from, and who are your parents? You are so young. I was a bit scared. What shall I tell my parents said? So me. What shall I say that my parents told me? They gave me away. I simply say we are from Egypt, a small village, and my parents are good people. My parents sent me here to work. It was now 10 years since I was living with my mistress. We began to love and respect each other. There were times I combed her hair, did her nails, and even prepared her bath. We would talk about anything for hours, laughing and joking around. She was such fun. Then one day, out of the blue, she came to me with this outrageous demand. Here, girl, my friend, I want you to do a great favor for me. What is my, what it is, my mistress? She said, I would like if you would be my husband's second wife and have a child with him for me. Can you do this for me, please? What did you say? Have a child for your husband? You kidding me? What was it you said? I respect you and all and everything, but have a child with Father Abraham? No, mistress, I cannot do that. It is not right. What would our father say? Well, she said, I have spoken to my husband, and he agrees, and also our father agrees the same, so you have no choice. Seeing it from that point of view, I accepted, and here I am, pregnant with Abraham's child 10 years later. What a story for me. 26 years old and pregnant. I hope Sarah is happy now, since I'm carrying her baby in my womb. Things were looking out real well until my baby emotions started to kick in. I was uncomfortable. My belly was growing. I started craving food we did not have. I was so miserable. I began to take out my frustration on Sarah, accusing her of my condition, my feelings, everything I could think of, I accused her of. She was so angry at me for the things I said to her that she lashed back at me. Her words had a terrible effect on me. I ran away as fast as I can go. I fled to the desert along a road to serve by a spring. As I was there, an angel of God began to speak to me. Hagar, upstairs. Hagar, Trevor, I'm sorry. What are you doing here? I tried to answer, but not a sound came. Then I tried and said, I ran away from my mistress. She told me to go back to my, he told me to go back to my mistress and submit to her. He informed me I was pregnant, that my son would be called Ishmael. He would have a multitude of descendants, and also he would be at war with everyone he came into contact with. I was so happy to return home. Sari was not so happy to see me, but I made peace with her and we settled in. About 13 years later, Abraham, who was 86 years old when her son Ismail was born, was now 99 years. Yes, Abraham's name got changed by God sometime back when the three angels brought the good news that Sarah would 1 year from that time have her own son. Isaac was born to Sarah. Her name was changed also. Peace at last. Things began to perk up again. The boys loved to play sport with each other. As boys, you know the older will always keep the younger. So Ishmael may have spoken to Isaac harshly, and Sarah heard. So she got upset and said that my son and hers would not be in the same category as her to Father Abraham inheritance. Well, as you all know, when dealing with money, there's always a problem. Sarah became so soon, called me a bondwoman and said, Ishmael and Isaac will not share in the same inheritance. That was not my intention. I only wanted Abraham to love his first son as he loved Isaac, but no, she had to make a scene to keep me out, this time for good. And what made it worse is that Father Abraham agreed this time with her and sent me away with just bread and water. What? With all that love he had? Not even any money? Where was I going to get food, buy clothes? So I left with my son Ishmael when he was around 13 years old. We traveled very far this time, even to Beersheba in the wilderness. The water ran out, and so did the bread. We were very thirsty and hungry. I placed Ishmael under a shrub, and for fear of seeing him die, I went over to the other side and watched him. I could hear him crying loudly out to God, saying, "Oh Lord, please help me and Mom. We are so hungry and thirsty. We need water." I began to weep, crying in agony. Then I felt the presence of God, and He spoke to me, saying, "Hagar, God has heard Ishmael's cry, and He is going to help you both. Hagar, your son Ishmael will reign over great nations." Then I looked, and by God's grace and mercy, there was a spring of running water, clear as crystal. We both ran and fell down on our knees to drink. We then remembered we had skins to fill with water. We filled our skins with water and prepared for the remainder of our journey. My son and I dwelt in the wilderness of Aram, where the land was rich with animals, vegetables. The people there were wealthy and friendly, and we adopted our surroundings very well. Then, as we adjusted and found a home and a job, I found him a nice, rich, beautiful young girl to marry from the land of Egypt. My story has a very valuable ending. God is always looking out for his own. No matter who you are and where you came from, and you love and honor God, he will stand by your side by faith. So trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not onto your own understanding as I did, but be obedient and humble like I was, and he will direct your path as he directs mine. Conclusion. May God bless all those who read this story. As you read about Hagar, the maidservant of Sarah, I hope you will understand the true value of God's divine love, grace, and mercy for all mankind. God does not choose color or race, but He chooses the broken-hearted and faint-hearted of the whole earth. Hagar was taken from her homeland because of her parents' poverty. She was mentioned in history as the mother of Ishmael, the father of the Arabians, Arabs. We see how God works in her situation in times of need. We see her calling to God for help. But most important is that even though she was of a different tribe than Israel, God still honors her by sending his holy angels to speak to her. History has it that she is the first person the angel speaks to, then to Abraham in the Bible. So you see, God does not favor anyone. He loves us all the same as he loves his son. And we have proof of that. For he gave us his only begotten son to die for us. John 3:16. Continue in his love. Trust him. Praise him. Worship him because he deserves all the glory and all the praise. God delivered Hagar from her situation as she was left to wander in the wilderness. She, she thought all hope was gone. The same way that God helped Hagar, he can help you. Just ask and he will deliver you from any situation. Written and adapted by Marimba.